Drug cheats, there's no greater scourge in sport. Jarrod Mullen is living with that shame after receiving a 4-year ban for testing positive to anabolic steroids. Tonight, he breaks his silence in a 7 News exclusive. Mel McLaughlin is here, and Mel, for the first time, Jarrod Mullen reveals exactly what happened.
That's right, Fergo, and he's been very open as well. Mullen insists he's not a drug cheat, but does admit he made a grave error of judgment that's ruined his life. He says he doesn't want sympathy, but does want others to learn from his mistake.
Jarrod Mullen's positive drug test stunned the rugby league world. His closest friends and former teammate, Willie Mason.
Myself and the rest of Australia want to know what actually happened.
I just want to say that I take full responsibility for sort of what happened. I'm not here to blame anyone else.
Newcastle's highest paid player, Mullen was touted as the next Andrew Johns, but his career unravelled, repeatedly tearing hamstrings off the bone. I
could have sat back and collected my money for the next sort of 3 years, kept tearing the hamstring and not try and do anything about it, but I want to be out there helping my team.
Knights medical staff couldn't fix Mullen's injuries. Pressure mounted. He sought treatment from a physiotherapist outside the club.
I trusted the bloke. I've known him for 10 years. He tossed up a amino acid sort of injection to help with the healing.
The injection was in fact banned steroid drostanolone,
which is a thing that helps cure breast cancer.
Asada conducted a routine drug test 7 weeks later.
How did you feel when they said it's positive for anabolic steroids?
I was gutted. If I was intentionally going out there to improve myself, to get bigger, faster, stronger, I'm happy to cop the 4 years.
The 4-year ban would have been reduced to 2 years had Mullen named and shamed the physio who injected him.
In hindsight, you probably should have. It's ruined my life, pretty much.
A lot of people would be on suicide watch.
Yeah.
Has there been any help from anywhere?
To be honest, I haven't heard from the NRL.
Jarrod Mullen is one of the most recognisable people here in Newcastle. He was once the toast of the town, admired and respected. But over the last few months, he's felt such shame, he struggled to leave his own home.
The only thing that's really killing me is my family having to go through it. Yeah, it's the only thing that kills me.
Jarrod Mullen's story is a lesson for all athletes.
Don't trust anyone. Just do whatever the club says.
Liam Cox, 7 News.
Very candid Jarrod Mullen there. Hopefully he gets his life back on track very shortly.
Welcome back, everyone. Newcastle has finally broken its drought in the player market, signing Roosters and Maroons forward Aidan Guerra to a 3-year deal. 7 News can also reveal the Knights are still in talks with Guerra's teammate Shaun Kenny-Dowall, who'll face court on drug possession charges later this month. Kenny-Dowall will be released by the Roosters in the next week and could join Newcastle before the June 30 transfer deadline. Knights coach Nathan Brown wants him on board, but the club's likely new owner, West Leagues, still has reservations. Now, on the field, Trbojevic is making his return from an ankle injury against the Knights. In driving rain at Brookie, Akuawate was held up over the line by Dane Gagai, but he eventually made his old club pay.
Down this side and they're wide open. Biting the hand that still feeds him. He's still paid by the Newcastle Knights.
A rare mistake from Trbojevic gifted Newcastle a golden opportunity. They were unable to convert. The visitors scored late in the half to take an 8-6 lead to the break.
A big boost for South Sydney today. The club confirming they've signed Maroon star Dane Gagai until at least the end of 2021. Meanwhile, the bunker has come under plenty of scrutiny in the past, but its latest mistake, many are calling the worst this season. Manly's Kenny-Dowall was awarded a controversial try that handed the Seagulls an 18-14 victory over the struggling Knights.
Back of the scrum.
It's the bunker blunder that robbed Newcastle of a much-needed victory, infuriated players and left fans scratching their heads.
Oh, the ball's gone. And they gave the try.
Manly's Kenny-Dowall clearly dropped the ball over the try line. The touch judge pointed up to suggest a bunker review, but the bunker immediately stepped in, telling the referee to award the try without even checking it.
I'd love to know what the touchy's saying there. Do they listen to what the touchy's saying anymore?
I don't know. We've had a fair few this year. We're in heats of battles. We've had a few tough ones, but that's, I suppose, where we are, and that's why we sit on the table where we are.
It helped Manly to a 4-point victory, and even the Seagulls players weren't convinced Duarte got it down.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. He's dropped a couple over this year, so I'm going to give him a word at training.
Tom Trbojevic made a successful return after 4 weeks out with a knee and ankle injury.
I got a little bit of a knock, but pulled through all right, and everyone's pretty happy with how it handled itself, so I'm upwards looking forward to next game.
He says he's ready to go if needed for Game 2 of State of Origin, but fears his opportunity to pull on a blue jersey this year has already passed.
I can't see Laurie making too many changes, but after what they did at Game 1.
Cameron joins me now with a look at sport, and Cam, Shaun Kenny-Dowall has begun the next chapter of his life.
Yes, he has, Pete. In this chapter, he becomes a knight. Kenny-Dowall joined his Newcastle teammates for the first time today and says he's determined to be a good role model for the young side. The 29-year-old feared his NRL career was over after pleading guilty to drug possession. Now he's vowed to reward the Knights for their lifeline.
Shaun Kenny-Dowall will wear a different style of red, white and blue from now on. After 224 games for the high-flying Roosters, he's now a part of Newcastle's rebuild.
Obviously been a part of a lot of successful teams and know what it takes to be successful, so I can offer that experience.
SKD hasn't played in the NRL since he was caught with cocaine at a Sydney nightclub in May. An ordeal he believes taught him an important lesson, one he can pass on to the Knights' young squad.
Something that I'm not proud of, but I'm really thankful to the club, and I really want to earn the respect of the club and the community and work really hard to repay the faith. I realise I'm one of the older players at the club now, and my behaviour has to fit that role as well.
Kenny-Dowall is carrying a hamstring injury, meaning his first game for the Knights could be against the Roosters in round 20.
Yeah, it'd be pretty weird playing against the old club that I've only ever played for the Roosters, and at the same time, I'll be excited to get it out of the way nice and early and, get on with it as well.
Jake Duke, 9 News.
The Tigers have moved off the bottom of the ladder following their win over the Knights this afternoon. The 33-12 victory was just the Tigers' 4th win of the season. The result sees Newcastle drop back to the bottom of the table.
Now, in the Sydney Morning Herald, I happened to stumble across a little article about Nathan Brown today, which was kind of driven by comments from the chairman of Newcastle, Brian McGregor, who called the loss against the West Tigers a catastrophe, then went on to say, after a period of grace, unless things are improving, we have to do something about it. So let's now roll in to the Knights and how they've performed under Nathan Brown since the beginning of last season. So I think we've got 39 games in all. I know the graph only goes up to 35. And as you can see, against the rest of the competition, the Knights having only won 3. The next closest is the Rabbitohs and the West Tigers on 15 wins. So it hasn't been great. But the pressure on Nathan Brown from Brian McGregor seemed to be pretty direct.
Probably the worst spray publicly I've ever seen a chairman give a coach, particularly at a club as vulnerable as that. To do that now, I think Brian McGregor has been sampling too much of his own product.
So you're saying he was out of line?
I thought he was completely out of line. I think that's disgraceful for a chairman, for a club and a coach and a team to be where they're at. To come out, and I think he's trying to cover his own arse, to be perfectly honest.
He had high expectations coming in.
I just think it's wrong.
Look, he probably is disappointed with himself. Because last year he predicted the Knights would win a premiership within 3 years.
Yeah.
They were never going to do that. And the fact is, I don't know if Brian McGregor really knows rugby league. I don't think he knows the business of rugby league. And I just think it was bizarre that he comes out so heavily inside. There's no appreciation there of where this side's come from. Nathan Brown's doing a really good job there.
Absolutely.
They're playing with a pair of 2s every week, that club. They've got 2 rookie halves. You know what I mean? Trent Hodkinson's
came back
around
on the weekend and went ordinary, and it looks like he's going to be back in reserve grade this week.
Well, he's struggling to play at the NRL level.
Their list is weak. It's the weakest in the competition.
Exactly, but you also have to see where they've come from. They've come off the back of the Bennett catastrophe, the Tinkler catastrophe. They're owned by the Knights. They can't, by the NRL, they can't do what other clubs do.
There's no third parties.
There's no third parties. The sooner West comes in and buys that club and they get some certainty around the financial future of the club, Nathan Brown can only do what he's got. So they get Kenny-Dowall, they've paid through the nose for Aidan Guerra next year, and they've got Ponga coming, who isn't going that well for the Cowboys. But, you know, to heap it all on the coach, I just think so.
Agree. And they better batten down the hatches, because I can see the next 12 to 15 months still being pretty rough.
Well, McGregor just needs to butt out. Like, he's as solid as a tower of jelly, isn't he, really? Like, this is a time when the club needs to stick together and they need to fight their way out of this. Is very, forgive the phrase, un-Newcastle.
Yeah, well, 20,000 people turned out on the weekend.
Yeah, look, there's no... Everyone acknowledges the problem there, and what they've got to do is also acknowledge the depth of the problem, and the chairman's forgotten about that. A couple of reds, off he goes.
There you go. Andrew Webster, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, boys.
Hope you're healed up next week too,
I will,
by the way.
I promise I will be.
Although you wear the Band-Aid well.
I look good, don't I?
Really well.
It's a head that can only be an improvement, whatever you do to it.
Yep, you said it. It's time for a break on NRL 360. The players are in next. Moses Mbai and Sam Burgess.
Here comes Sam again. Reaches out, slams it down. Slam and Sam. Moses Mbai locks them up. Look at it go.
All right, let's move it on. Phil Rothfield writes in today's Daily Telegraph that the West Group in Newcastle, so it's an organisation that owns multiple licensed clubs and a couple of hotels, looks like to be the purchaser of the Newcastle Knights off the National Rugby League. I've got to ask, why do you think the West Group, who've been around and very successful for a long time in that region, have been reticent to buy the Knights in the past?
Oh, that's never been the right deal in the past. They've dipped their toe in the water a couple of times.
What's attractive about it now?
There's no other offer on the table. There's no Nathan Tinkler.
Doesn't make it attractive.
Well, Nathan Tinkler made it very hard for them to purchase the side last time they had run at it. Yeah. And Nathan Tinkler just came in with a big chequebook and said, mate, I'm going to underwrite this, I'm going to pay big bucks for it, I'm going to get the new coach Wayne Bennett down. And it was all hip hooray, and it all just turned into sour grapes when he went belly up. This time, there's no one else throwing themselves over to buy this great West Newcastle Knights club. And unfortunately, it is an absolute icon.
Yeah, the thing about that, I think the West Club has basically come in and say, if we don't come in and buy it, the club will die. Because the NRL's got to offload this club by October 31. Now, if the NRL can't find a buyer by October 31, they have essentially two options. One is to say to the Newcastle Knights, well, listen, you go on and without any help from the NRL, and given your current financial status and funding and model and all the rest of it, you will eventually go to the wall. Or secondly, you relocate and you become the Perth Knights or the Central Queensland Knights.
I've just seen all the Newcastle people now on the phones.
And so that's what. And so I think it's actually a goodwill gesture from the West Club to come in and say, well, we'll save the club. They are a very successful leagues club and have been for a long time. They dominate their own rugby league team in Newcastle, dominated competition for many years, and it all comes down to purchasing power. They run a very good club. And we see in Sydney the clubs that are most profitable are the heavily backed leagues club clubs. This will give the Knights a leagues club backing them for the first time. Yeah. And it gives them an opportunity to really get off the cellar floor. They're going to get
which is the great model, isn't it? Let's be honest. The great model in New South Wales is to have the football club, the wealthy leagues club attached to it, and that the gap between revenue and expenses, which is common at Penrith and Parramatta and Canterbury, gets made up by the leagues club.
Benny, what process did they go through for the sale of this Newcastle Knights? Did they put a tender out into the marketplace saying...
Oh, it's been out. Yeah, so no, the Knights have been out. They've been up for sale for some time. But there's been nobody sniffing around.
It's been marketed...
This will still have to go through the West members, though. The West members could turn up
and vote against it.
The good thing about this is the best way to help the poor is not to become one. And what the West Club have done is they've sat back and saw all the campaigners, as you said, potential buyers fall off, and they're left, and they're going to take this club over for virtually nothing. And the great thing is they're in the business of rugby league. They understand it, and they'll be able to make it work better than anyone else possibly has in the past, and they're the only vehicle to go forward in the future.
You know why, Bill? I know why, because they know the golden rule, Benny. Tell us.
Whoever has the gold makes the rule.
That's right.
Boom, boom.
National Hoodie Day is this Friday, the 7th of July, which is an initiative that raises funds for the Australian Indigenous mentoring experience. This year's hoodie was designed by a Year 9 student and program participant, Ella Gillespie. you can purchase a hoodie for $65 at aimementoring.com/hoodie day. And poor Kent's got a version that he's going to be wearing out later tonight. Classic. Yeah.
I'll take this to the disco, Ben.
Yeah, there it is up there. And on poor Kent, wow.
Mate, you need that with a couple of my cuffs.
Yeah.
Hey.
You look a treat.
A couple of those, what do they call those, violet black lights, what do they call them? The ones that make you glow in the dark?
Yeah.
Strobe
Mate,
lighting.
I'll be just moonwalking across the dance floor with this.
A big cheerio out to, while we're talking about Newcastle, to Brett Mullen. He's at the Gunya Hotel up there. I could just see him wearing one of those up there behind the bar, pouring a beer there for the locals.
Yeah, Benny's doing another deal up there, I'm assuming. It's time for break. Up next, another cracking instalment of Then versus Now.
Knights chairman Bryan McGregor came out this week and basically said that if the Knights don't start winning, Nathan Brown, they'll be looking for a new coach. Do the Knights need a new coach?
Is this the same guy that said they were going to win a comp within 3 years?
Yes.
And every great judge said it's about a 5-year rebuild.
At least.
They had the greatest coach. Didn't they have a... Yeah. I thought they had a local bloke in Stone there, and then they went to Wayne Bennett. And Newcastle were in a bit of a basket case. Didn't we all think it was about a 5-year turnaround?
Oh, yeah. Mate, he's doing it. He's doing an outstanding job. You see the style of football that they played. Like last week, they were awful. It's their most disappointing game. But I've watched them. They've been in it just about every single game. The coach can take a team so far, Kenty, and then we've got to get out there and win it. And at the moment, we're 2 or 3 experienced players short, and we're a quality half short to get that side home.
Because the other problem is this. Sorry, Anna. The other problem is they are currently trying to fix that problem by recruiting good players. How do you recruit when the chairman's coming out saying the coach might be sacked?
Yeah.
Who wants to go to a club where there's already an axe hanging over the coach?
I was going to pick up on the recruiting point. My concern with Nathan Brown is either how involved he is in getting players like Aidan Guerra, where the Knights are paying overs for him. Shaun Kenny-Dowall, they're taking a big risk signing him, not just on the field, but his off-field rap sheet. Yeah, and I just wonder how influential he is, because it's hard to turn a club around.
Has he let too many first graders go?
Well, I think in Brownie's defence, at the start of this year, Jason hasn't played a game with injury.
Yeah.
Hodkinson hasn't showed up.
Bureau.
And Jarrod Mullen,
drug
suspension, and Jamie Bureau. So there's 4 senior players. I agree with me. They need some old hard heads with a bit of experience. I know I was only young, but when Newcastle first started, they based their team around a couple of old heads in the pack, and even though they weren't winning, they were bashing their opponents, and they were built on a real tough team up there.
So building a culture.
Yeah. But they also let Dane Gagai go. Sorry, his name escaped me earlier. Yeah, but how do you let someone like that slip through your fingers and leave the club?
There's a few that they've let go. The Sims brothers,
and they've landed Ponga. Like, there's no doubt they'd love to get James Graham. I mean, the recruitment's not over. They're out there still fighting. They're just finding it difficult at the moment, because sides are looking at Newcastle going, do I want to be part of a 5-year rebuild?
Right.
But Hannah, I just watch, purely from a football point of view, I look at how they're playing, and I've watched them play this year so many times, and I tip my hat to how they're playing. It's just that little bit of cream on top that gets you home. And recapturing that winning feeling's a big thing. It's a real big thing.
Matty, I'm keen to know, if Nathan Brown was to get the sack, who do you think would be a replacement?
Hannah, I would, I don't even want to entertain it, because I don't see anyone out there who you pinpoint and say, that's the person for the Knights. Joey Johns. it'd be a circus. I mean, look, Monday would be a lot of fun, but it'd be a circus.
Right.
So we're done.
Now, Bulldogs up against the Knights at Belmore Oval on Sunday. Good to see footy back at Belmore Oval. And I tell you what, I'd give the Knights a real good show. They were poor last week, but Dogs haven't been travelling that well themselves. So big opportunity for Nathan Brown's men, and they got a bit of stick through the week.
Yeah, they did get a bit of stick. I noticed this in the paper. There was some young girls that were hurling abuse, calling them losers, and just saying, I think the word was your dogs. I'm not too sure, but I actually tracked down the girls that actually did this. Now, look, they're ugly-looking girls, but, I suppose they're quite vocal up there. So.
Yeah, just the one on the right's all right.
No.
Would you?
The way they eat a pie.
What? Josh Reynolds is known for producing the unexpected, and that's exactly what happened in his farewell to Belmore today. In one of the most chaotic finishes of the season, the Bulldogs looked down and out, but they fought back to snatch a 20-18 win over the Knights.
He's been the heart and soul of the Dogs for the past 6 years. It was always going to be an emotional farewell for Josh Reynolds.
And he's greeted there
by his mum, Nicole. They are Bulldogs through and through, the Reynolds family.
Canterbury fans squeezed onto the newly renamed Josh Reynolds Hill. And it wasn't long before they were in full voice.
Lovely hands, a lovely tap on from Hopewati, and Kerrod Holland puts points on the board for the Bulldogs at Belmore.
It was a tight first 40 and seconds before half-time the Knights snuck over.
They'll score, Peter Matautia. The Bulldogs weren't expecting such a quick tap, but they got one and the Knights have got the try.
Not even a half-time pep talk from Reynolds could help as the Knights came storming back after the break.
They're in Newcastle, it's Chanel Matautia in his only NRL appearance this season. He's given the Knights the lead.
The young Newcastle side soon looking unstoppable.
It's a try! Peter Matautia with the set play.
But the Dogs weren't going down without a fight.
Down the wing, he'll score! We're not done with yet.
And unbelievably, they took the lead.
The Bulldogs are going to snatch it! They were done for all money!
Reynolds nearly spoiled his own party with a shoulder charge, but thankfully for him, the kick missed, the Dogs securing a 2-point victory, sending Reynolds off in style. Danica Mason, 9 News.
Broncos 34 over the Knights 22. What a bastard a result this was. Anyway, nonetheless, once again, mate, the Newcastle Knights, once again, this is symbolic of their season so far. They're just in the match all the way, and just the back end of the game. The ability to ice the contest once you're in it is the only thing lacking. But there's a Ross dog. He'll be joined by him in a second. But, geez, a good footballer, young Denny Levi.
Yeah, Newcastle again, mate. We seem to be saying the same thing. They were gallant, but fell short. Brisbane rested the two back rowers in Gillette and Maguire, but in the end, the class of Milford, having him back after 6 weeks certainly improves their side.
Yeah, it certainly does. Well, I tell you what, it's time to welcome our guest, ladies and gentlemen. I think he's one of the best characters in rugby league at the moment. Had a couple of wonderful seasons. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ross Dog, Nathan Ross.
Very good. You shake hands.
Ross Dog. How are you, mate? Hey,
good, mate.
Good. Hey, mate, I've been loving your stuff on The Professor.
Yeah?
It's good fun.
Yeah, I enjoy my time on it.
Yeah,
pretty funny dudes.
Yeah. Mate, the Knights last month, geez, I tell you what, it's been a couple of heartbreakers in there, hasn't there?
Yeah, it's pretty much been the story of our development, though. We've come a long way since last year, where last year we were, I guess, happy to compete, where at points in time we're leading in the games now. It's just... Playing it, we've got to learn to play our sets out and make the right decisions at crucial parts of the game.
How is the confidence in the group? Because, you know, losing so many games, sometimes you can go to training and it can be a bit down, but you guys look upbeat every week.
Well, at the end of the day, we get to live out our dream. Every time we go to training, it's something that we've grown up as kids wanting to do. Winning is the ultimate goal, and that's what you want to do for your club and your team and your fans, but to turn up every day and get to live out your dream, there's no more motivation than that.
Bit of pressure under Nathan Brown the last couple of weeks. What's his strengths?
I think he's great. Nathan's probably brought the best player out of me. The most development I've had has been in the last 24 months since Nathan's been at the club. When he first came, I wasn't selected in the round 1 team last year because there was a few things I had to work on, and I went and worked on what Nathan suggested, and from there kept evolving. And he's a good man manager. He's brutally honest, which is what players need, and he's very good at tactics as well.
Yeah, you're an exciting player though, Nathan. What is it you had to work on? What's Brownie said you needed to work on?
I had to learn a bit of humility. So when he first came there,
you do it a bit.
I guess I might have been a little bit ahead of myself. And
we all do sometimes.
Yeah, and Nathan made me aware of that, and some adjustments need to be made, and I made those adjustments, and I'm really enjoying playing underneath him.
Sorry, mate, I don't know if you saw the press conference, Wayne Bennett's press conference, and he had a bit of advice for Nathan. I don't know if you've got a vision of this. Did you see this?
The first challenge is to stop losing their quality players, and the second challenge is, they've got to go a lot more time with Nathan. I mean, bringing a new coach is not going to solve their problems. Okay, he's done a lot of things right here, I've got to assume, and none of us are perfect, but Newcastle's not going to solve their problems by bringing a new coach in. No one else is going to come here and get those wins at the moment with the team they've got here. They've got And there's new players coming, so strengthen what he's got. So that's my thoughts.
I don't want to direct it at you, but what do you think, Matty? What did you honestly think of that? You looking at me like you're going to yell at me, or?
I just thought, no. I just thought, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. Wayne's had his turn, and he left the Knights. To have your side of the fence, brother. Yeah.
But didn't he lose Herman Essie, Tatai Moga from his club to the Knights? Aren't they quality players?
Quality players.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, Fletch. You know, like, look, Wayne's an experienced coach, but, the fact that he left the club, he's had his time at the club, and I do agree with what he said on Brownie. Well, there's been pressure applied on Brownie, and Brownie is doing a super job. And, mate, and look, as far as next year's concerned, when you have a look at the structure of the team, those couple of boys of the Broncos that are coming there, mate, Ponga's going to make a massive difference. He'll give that little bit of class and strike to go as well.
Guerra.
And, mate, Guerra, experience of Guerra, Shaun Kenny-Dowall, mate, a really experienced player. Yeah, Connor Watson. So you can start to see the side start to form.
I've played plenty of reserve grade. Hopefully not.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break because coming up we have got the live. Sorry, what was that? Let's some good stuff to come. Live out of death interview coming up. But don't forget, this Thursday night we've got the Broncos and the Bulldogs. Last week it was Josh McCrone and Cameron McGuinness. Just top lads, good sports, a lot of fun. Oh, have a look at the choppers. No, thank you. I tell you what, tonight, Fletch and Hindy with the Ross Dog.
Thank you for joining us, mate. What we do have before, we've got a gift for you. It's the Newcastle Knights watch, so that's for yours.
Is this under the salary cap?
Absolutely. Only problem is, it runs out of batteries after 40 minutes, so you'll have to wind it up again. You've got to wind it up. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
That's winding.
Mate, open that. Mate, you were a minor once.
Yeah, I was a minor.
Yeah, so was I when I was 17.
We practiced that.
We did. Yeah, that was poor. No, but seriously, you were a minor, mate, before you became a rugby league
player. Yeah, in the coal mines, yeah.
What was your job down there?
I did everything. I started off sorting out the structure on the surface, so for the conveyor belts. Moved my way into logistics, so driving forklifts and juggernauts. Juggernauts is a transportation device that you use to get supplies from the top down to the bottom. And then doing the air and water lines all the way to driving shuttle cars and eventually getting my L's on the continuous miner, cutting the face of where the coal is.
Wow. Yeah, it's quite impressive. So you were mining and playing rugby league as well at the same time? So
I was.
You were playing for the Knights, turn up to training?
So when I was playing reserve grade, I was working either day shift or night shift, so I could get my training and stuff in. And then when I did my first pre-season, I moved to a crew called Black Crew, which is you work Friday, Saturday, Sunday night from 6:30 p.m. till 7:30 a.m.
Wow. Brett Finch worked for them too. One not the mines. Mate, France. You played over in France. What was that
Toulouse. It was fantastic. Played for a club called Toulouse. A fellow player of mine now plays for the Roosters. He's played a few games for the Roosters now. Lenny Vunikesi. I used to lay in my lounge room in the centre of town and talk about how good it would be to play in the NRL, and now we've both finally got there.
Can you speak French?
J'ai parlé un petit peu français.
Oh.
I speak a little bit of French.
Yeah.
J'ai parlé caca in français très bien.
That's impressive. What's that mean?
No, that one's like I talk in French pretty good.
French polish? Can you French polish? French kiss?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. It's going well.
It is. Mate, Ross, you were caught up in a bit of a contract dispute earlier in the year. All sorted now, though?
Yeah, it's all sorted now. So I'm at the club till 2020 now, so I'm extremely happy.
Yeah, right. But what happened there? Because I know there was a bit of media saying that you probably... Because we're in negotiations ourselves. So
I can give you some advice.
What did you say?
Don't go to the media about it because I ended up spending a week in reserve grade for it.
Was that? Okay, so what's the equivalent for us? For
footy show.
I was thinking more Sterlo. 360. Wow.
You've really gone. Jeez. Ooh,
yeah,
didn't see that coming.
Mate, it's been widely documented that Wayne Bennett told you that you couldn't play.
Yep.
What did he actually say?
I just told me that I should focus on working in the mines and that rugby league isn't probably the career path for me.
Subtle.
Is that basically...
That was it.
Yeah, right.
I was at the water cooler. I was getting a drink after the field session. Before Christmas. It was my Christmas present.
Wow. Mate, this is the Brock Lamb kick. 2 weeks ago. This is it here. Have a look at this. Bit of a visual.
Wow. Would you call that a lamb shank?
That's terrible. That's terrible. Mate, what was said after that? In the sheds after?
Mate, what can you say? Full credit to him for...
He cost us the game?
No.
What a shit kick.
You got to admire someone who wants to step up into those pressure situations. I called for the tee, but they said no. But no, Brock stood up and he had a crack. And like some things in life, you don't always hit your target. And he missed that one, and we got around him as a playing group. And I think he had a pretty good game on the weekend.
But what happened there? Because there was reports that Hocko wanted to take the kick, but it was too far out. Was there any discussion on the field that you heard, or did young Brock...
It was all quite frantic, to be perfectly honest. I don't think he had the right tee either. I think apparently there's a couple of different types. There's kick-off tees and goal-kicking tees and stuff like that. But full credit to him for standing up at that age and having a crack.
Yeah, I thought so too.
He missed it by a mile though, didn't he? It didn't even look like getting anywhere near it.
Yeah, but at least he had a crack, Nathan.
Oh, yeah, but anyone can have a crack. We could have a crack.
Have you had a crack?
I have, actually.
We got any footage?
It went over.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it did.
There you go.
55 out.
Mate, you got, as you mentioned before, you've got a couple of Roosters coming up there.
Yeah.
Shaun Kenny-Dowall, Aidan Guerra, and maybe Connor Watson. What are you hoping they can bring to the club?
Shaun Kenny-Dowall's going to be massive for us because before Shaun's actually came to the club, if you have a look at our outside backs, our most experienced outside back, apart from Dane.
No, I mean to the club, like the nightclub.
I got kids, so I don't know.
Sorry.
I'm at home.
No. No, continue.
Mate, another visual one for you. What did you mean by this? Have a look at this.
What about the 3 tries? A hat trick already?
Yeah, I'm like an untalented Clint Gutherson.
Keep it going, brother.
Thanks, mate.
What does that mean? An untalented...
I think talentless was the word. I think Clint Gutherson's a very talented player where I just try hard. I just try really hard. I might not be as talented, but I just try really hard.
Oh, God.
What's your best position? Because you've played centre, wing, and fullback.
I enjoy fullback the most. Fullback really is turning into a quite ball-playing role. Running the ball is my strong point. So I'm hoping to cause Nathan some selection headaches at this point in time. I know young Kalen Ponga's coming down, but I'm quite confident in all 3 positions. But whatever the best fit is for the team.
All right. Well, this has been an outstanding interview. You're quite intelligent, and you've done it by yourself too. Usually we have 2 of us. But now it's time for the night's challenge. We don't have any opener or anything, but would you like to come over and shoot the ogre?
I'd love to shoot the ogre.
Let's go. Let's do this. All right, what we've got here, we've got the pink lady. The Knights have to rescue the pink lady, as they do in the classics. Can we have the ogre over here? The ogre. We couldn't get an ogre.
But we got the aspects thing. So
this is like William Tell. So if you go back to that line there, you've got to shoot the pink lady off the ogre's
so we're getting 2 shots.
melon. 2 shots.
So if you miss, then...
I don't miss.
Sir,
I've got 2 kids.
Matthew gets a shot.
Sorry. Do you want the Damien Keogh Sunnies? Just leave them on. Keep your eyes. So it's Newcastle versus Oldcastle.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Oh, what?
Oh. 2 shots?
3 shots each. Go lower, mate. Go lower. Lower.
Are you aiming?
Lower.
Oh.
Oh, here. Yeah, shoot blanks. Come on. You'll lock it in. Go, Matty.
Well, so
I've got a good segment, Fletch.
Go. And... Oh, that's 3. Go, Matty. You've got to load them up.
Okay, here we go.
Hang on, we've got to load them up.
That's right.
Stand by. You got him?
We got him?
Nice work.
We got him.
Get him in the face.
Bit lower.
Sorry, Gordy.
Keep going.
All right, Gordy.
Oh, last one.
Oh, shit. Hang on. There we go. Come on, here we go. Lucky last.
Okay, oh! That's it. Well done.
There we go.
Let's have another look. Thanks, mate.
Ross Dog, outstanding, mate. Thanks for coming down the highway. Appreciate it. Good luck for the rest of the season, mate. Good luck with your career too. You're going great.
Thanks very much,
You're
guys.
going good, man. Okay, we're going to take a break. And don't forget, after the Footy Friday night, we've got the Professor.
To the NRL, and the Knights have given their long-suffering fans something to cheer about with a 7-point victory over the Dragons in Newcastle. The home side snapping an 8-game losing streak for just their 3rd win of the season, while the Saints' finals credentials took a major hit. Michael Caine reports.
Newcastle have been like lambs to the slaughter for as long as many can remember, but there was no denying this lamb early on.
And young Lamb, he's going to try kick as well. It was shot and regathered in the first try. He's done it all himself.
Shaun Kenny-Dowall was keen to impress in his first home game in new colours, and he didn't disappoint.
He is running through the air there. He is like a long jumper.
St George Illawarra looked to replicate that feat moments later.
He's leapt, but he leapt into the rough. He missed the fairway.
Paul Vaughan got the job done the more traditional way as the Dragons started to breathe fire. Former Knight Tariq Sims proved too big, too strong from 15 metres out.
And just like that, seconds out from half-time, it's got to hurt the Knights fans.
The Dragons down by 2 at the break. Matthew Duffy made a meal of a chance for his side to hit the front. Newcastle, though, had no problems.
King will be held up. No, he dumped it back. And Jacob Saifidi has scored.
A boil over looming, the red V was starting to look red-faced. Trent Hodkinson compounding their woes at the other end.
Back to Hodkinson, right in front, slams it down the middle. And the Knights will get home, you'd reckon.
The Knights snapping an 8-game losing streak, winning 21 points to 14.
No matter how tough it's gotten this year or the past couple of years, the fans have been unbelievable, and it's just good to get the win for them.
Michael Caine, 10 Eyewitness News.
It's hard to get a gauge on St George Illawarra at the moment. Last week they blew away Manly, but today crumbled against the last-place Knights. It's just Newcastle's 3rd win of the season, breaking an 8-match losing streak.
Shaun Kenny-Dowall scored on debut last week for Newcastle, and with his side desperately looking to avoid another wooden spoon, he was at it again against the Saints.
Kenny-Dowall! Shaun Kenny-Dowall, yes sir!
An airborne Jason Nightingale was savagely dealt with, but his side got on the board soon after when an unlikely hero stepped his way to the try line.
This is Vaughan, the former Incredible Hulk.
Josh Dugan's sheer strength put former Knight Tariq Sims over, but the Dragons would trail by 2 at half-time, with Newcastle throwing everything at them.
What a special take that was.
Dugan continued to terrorise the Knights defenders, but with scores tied at 14-all, St George Illawarra couldn't come up with the killer blow. So Newcastle obliged.
He dumped it back, and Jacob Saifidi has scored.
The Saints butchered any chance of equalising, the Knights winning 21 points to 14.
To Hodkinson, slams it down the middle.
It's too far between our best and our worst, and today was a lot closer to our worst, so it's some disappointed people.
Rob Canning, 9 News.
Newcastle has claimed just its 3rd win of the season, upsetting St George Illawarra 21-14, and Dragons coach Paul McGregor has slammed the bunker as incompetent and embarrassing after 2 disallowed tries.
Desperate to avoid being whacked with another wooden spoon, the Knights' Brock Lamb stirred early.
In the first try, he's done it all himself.
Shaun Kenny-Dowall's mid-season switch continued to pay dividends. In defence, the Ross dog was on guard.
He owns that hook corner down there, the Rossi.
The Dragons sought an alternate route in attack and hit back twice as hard. Their second caused the home fans some angst, but Tariq Sims took it all in his stride.
The former Knight scores!
The Dragons continued to fire, levelling it at 14 apiece early in the second half, compliments of a penalty goal.
But there it is. Well, it's actually on Duffy.
Nene McDonald appeared to be off, but the Ross dog was lurking and jumped back on patrol.
Take on Ross. Now he slows down and Duffy loses the ball.
Ball control was just one of a few concerns for the Dragons.
McDonald had a look and lost it.
As the Knights put on a fairy tale finish for the faithful.
Look at the fans, all 15,000 of them.
But Paul McGregor was seething at the bunker and 2 disallowed tries.
Embarrassing and incompetent. I think anyone that knows rugby league would agree.
Michelle Bishop, 7 News.
To the NRL now, and Newcastle has recorded back-to-back wins for the first time since 2015 to increase their hopes of avoiding the dreaded wooden spoon. But they could be missing fullback Nathan Ross, who was taken to hospital for scans after being hit in the back by the Warriors' Blake Ashford. The Knights opened up a 16-point margin just before the hour mark.
Hodkinson gets the ball for Lamb, supported by Lachlan Fitzgibbon. Talk about a much-deserved try.
Brock Lamb's late try sealed a 26-10 victory and Newcastle's 4th win of the season. They're now 2 points behind the second-last Tigers, who play tomorrow.
The Knights are an outside chance of avoiding their 3rd straight wooden spoon after recording back-to-back wins for the first time in almost 2 years. Newcastle out-enthused the Warriors at Hunter Stadium today, running out with a 26-10 victory. There was a downside to the day, though. Colt hero Nathan Ross was taken to hospital with a suspected fractured back.
And Ryan is back with sport now, and the Knights may not yet get the wooden spoon after all.
Maybe not, Michael. They scored a big win over the Warriors, but there's major concerns for Nathan Ross, suffering a potentially broken back. We'll have details shortly. Knights favourite Nathan Ross is waiting for scans tonight after suffering a suspected fractured back against the Warriors today. After Mitch Barnett's early double, Newcastle stormed 2 back-to-back wins for the first time in 2 years.
Supported by Lachlan Fitzgibbon. Talk about a much-deserved try.
It confirms the Warriors' season is another major flop with no hope of reaching the finals. The Knights winning 26-10 to remain a chance of avoiding 3 straight wooden spoons. Good evening. The Eels are expected to enter the NRL top 4 tonight, but Newcastle may be spoiling those plans. Para fans turned up for captain Tim Mannah's 200th game, but the Knights crossed early with great hands from former Eel Ken Seo. Then it was 12-0 to Newcastle inside 10 minutes as they try to avoid 3 straight wooden spoons.
So scrappy from the Eels, unloading away. Gagai's got support, and Barnett has raced over.
Parramatta replied through a Michael Jennings special as he raced away from Dane Gagai. It's been a pretty sloppy first half from the Eels and the Knights. They are up at the moment 12-4 going into the break.
And Parramatta's top 4 credentials are being questioned after going down 29-10 to the bottom of the table Knights.
We were outbeaten, tonight in those out-enthused. We didn't kick well. All those key words, composure, discipline, patience, we didn't have any of it.
It was Newcastle's 3rd win on the trot and their first away victory in 23 matches.
Parramatta was also given a reality check at the hands of the 15th place Newcastle Knights. The Eels say attitude let them down in the 29-10 defeat.
Yeah, they out-enthused us. They played with a lot more energy and they came in and wanted the win more than we did, which is really disappointing.
Incredibly, it was Newcastle's first away win in nearly 2 years. They play Melbourne next weekend, and after 3 straight wins say there's no reason why they can't be the side to stop the Storm's charge.
That's the goal. They've got 2 arms and 2 legs just like us, and it'll be a great test for the boys. They're playing great football and they're definitely the benchmark in the comp, and it'll be good for the boys to test themselves against them.
New recruit Shaun Kenny-Dowall says the move north has reinvigorated his footy career after he was sacked from the Roosters for pleading guilty to cocaine possession.
Yeah, for sure. It's good to put everything behind me and start fresh. And I know the boys are really enjoying their footy, and it's just good to be a part of the club. And they're on the up, and I'm just really enjoying it at the moment.
Danica Mason, 9 News.
Eels blew a chance to join the top 4 with a 29-10 thrashing by Newcastle at home. Dane Gagai apologised for spoiling captain Tim Mannah's 200th game.
Yeah, that's very disappointing. We let him down. Why? Maybe we were looking for a soft win.
The Knights have 3 straight wins for the first time in 2.5 seasons. Brock Lamb lifted them above the Tigers off the bottom of the table.
We played a team that had won 6 on the bounce, that were playing, that a lot of people were talking about winning the grand final, and I thought we were clearly the better team.
Matt Carmichael, 7 News. Knights favourite Nathan Ross wants to play again this season despite breaking his back 9 days ago.
It was scary. It was very scary. A lot of things do go through your head. Will I play again? Will this affect my life away from football?
It's first versus last on Saturday, but Newcastle say they're not stopping at 3 straight wins.
An upset over the Storm at home, why not? I believe we can do it.
And it's Coaches Night on 360. Nathan Brown takes us through the rebuild happening in Newcastle. Yeah, welcome back to NRL 360, and there was some great victories on the weekend. How many teams won on the weekend?
8. Like they win every weekend.
Trick question.
I thought you'd lost the plot.
I thought I'd catch you out there. And one of the teams that had a fantastic win, and it was their 3rd in a row, in fact, was the Newcastle Knights, and their coach joins us right now, Nathan Brown. G'day, Brownie.
Hey, guys.
All right, did you see this rich vein of form coming?
Look, I couldn't honestly say sitting here that we thought we'd win 3 games in a row, but we were confident that because the guys were competing so well every week that we'd eventually win one. And after the Canterbury one, it was like, when's it going to happen? Yeah, because that was obviously the game where we felt we had it. And so we didn't see 3 in a row come, but we certainly knew there was a win coming. And you always hope if you get one that might help you get a second. And then what's happened.
I imagine the mood in the club's pretty good at the moment.
Yeah, look, it's always been pretty good, Kenny. I think I've said plenty of times this year, we'd only won that one game for a fair period. We'd had a lot of close losses. The young kids turn up keen to train, happily do their videos with their coaches. Their attitude's first class. The strength coach will say how good they're doing. The fitness coach will say how hard they're training. We just couldn't get the win. So their attitude has always been good, but definitely the happiness and the confidence definitely gets a bit of a boost with winning.
Take us into that, because one of the problems when you have so many young players and so many back-to-back losses is they can become scarred, and you see good players who have a history of winning as junior footballers, but when they get into the senior grades and they start losing a few games, they become, I don't want to say losers, but they forget how to win. It becomes a habit.
Yeah.
How do you safeguard these guys against that?
Sometimes I'm not sure if we get it right all the time, Kenny, but last year I was really easy on the guys because they clearly weren't ready to be playing first grade. So last year we had an approach where I was much softer as a coach than what I may be in other situations, and then this year trying to find the balance between being harder on them but not going over the top.
Yeah,
it's probably a fine line, and I spoke to the GWS coach about it when he was coaching it. He played a big part there in the GWS, and they were younger kids, and we sort of spoke about the balance of trying to get it right and not go too hard to not affect their confidence, but then also not accept certain standards or else you will become a loser.
Yeah.
So, we had a lot of video sessions, a lot of individual video sessions, and just showing them the wrong and right of what works at the NRL level and what's acceptable and what's not, and trying to find the right balance. As I said, I'm not sure if we always get it right, but we feel that the young kids are growing as we sit here today.
Yeah, well, we're certainly doing that. One of the things I think that fascinates most people about the Knights is the rebuild and how you arrived at a club that was in pretty dire shape from a salary cap point of view. A lot of the whatever senior experienced or good players you had were old and over the hill in many cases. You've got a history of rebuilding clubs, though. I know that when you went to St Helens, you first off started Castleford in England. They were perennial last place. You got them up into the finals. Then you moved to St Helens. That's the bit that fascinates me. I heard a story about when you were there and you had a conversation with the owner about what choices he wanted to make. Just take us through that.
Well, St Helens at that stage had 5 grand final losses in a row, and then the next 2 years after that hadn't made the grand final, which for St Helens is a disaster. And the roster hadn't changed a lot. They'd changed a little bit. They'd lost James Graham. Shaun Long had moved on, and they had a lot of ageing players. Some were players who had served the club so well for a long period of time. And St Helens had a good batch of younger kids coming through, which they wanted myself to help introduce into first grade. And I just said to the chairman, I said, if these older players that couldn't get you over the line 5 or 6 years ago, I said, and you've lost James Graham and you've lost Shaun Long and lost Kieran Cunningham, these blokes are some of the greatest players we've had. I said, you can't expect these older blokes to be good enough to get you over the line 6 or 7 years later. So we're going to have to make some some hard calls early and get the young kids playing. In my first year at St Helens, I think we had 16 debutants, mostly local juniors, one or two that we drafted in. And what we had at St Helens, though, Kenny, was we had some real good core of senior players. So we had Paul Wellens, who, when we won the grand final, it was his 11th grand final appearance. He was the club legend. James Raby's an outstanding hooker, one of the better ones I've ever seen, been in 5 or 6 grand finals. And John Wilkin was a player in England who'd played 30-odd tests and played in 6 grand finals. And those three were great senior players. And I also had Sia Soliola, who Ricky obviously speaks very highly of as a leader at Canberra, and Willie Mannah played a good role for me as well. So I had some good senior players, and they played a big part in the transition. But, you know, we had a little period there in my first year where we had a number of injuries to Paul Wellens and James Raby, and we didn't have any senior players. We had a heap of kids, and we lost 5 in a row. And the chairman, Aime McManus, is a good man, and Mike Rush, the CEO, is a great football man, Rushy. And they sort of said, what can we do to fix the problem? And I said, you can't fix the problem now. All you can do is watch the young kids get better. And in the recruitment market, we need to sign these type of players through, you know, these 3 or 4 players. And the chairman, as they can do at St Helens, he went and signed those 3 or 4 players, and the next year we improved quite remarkably.
So have you had to work hard to convince the powers that beat Newcastle to remain patient? I know there was a statement made by the chairman, Brian McGregor, not that long ago, who seemed a little tested about the lack of success.
Yeah, look, the thing with the rebuild, one of the biggest things you need is genuine support, not half-hearted support. You need genuine support, and you need people involved who actually understand what it takes to build a football club from the bottom up. And when I say the bottom up, we were starting at the Knights. We were going way back to the bottom as you can go, you know. And John Quayle, outstanding football man. You know, Matty Gidley knows his footy. Phil Gardner, Boss of West, Mark Fitzgibbon, NIB, and Aidan and Katie, all people who were 100% behind what we had to do. And I was very honest and clear that this is going to be a tough road if you want to try and get the club back to where it was in the late 90s and early 2000s. Because in a rebuild, you can create room in your salary cap over a period of time, and you can go and sign a quick fix. You can sign 3 or 4 players that'll make your stats as a coach look better, let's just say, like where you might win another 3 or 4 games in any one year. But all it does is it shuffles you back longer term. And without the support that I was given, thankfully, by the people on the board, you can't do what we've done today. So you have to have that support or you're no chance.
Have you had any low moments or times where you've second-guessed yourself?
Oh, last year we had some tough times, you know, like losing's lonely. It's a lonely place to be. And the hardest thing last year is that we were losing, and I felt sorry for a lot of the kids that were playing, because if they played 20 games, they should have played 5. If they played 10, they should have played 3. You know, they were playing well before their time. And I was a bit fearful of what Kenny was saying, is what's it going to do to some of them, you know? So I was a little bit worried in some ways. And knowing that there was no way we could change last year, so round 10 happens and then round 12 happens, and Danny Badiris actually said, it's going to get better soon, isn't it? And I said, you tell me why it's going to get better next week, Bedsy, or the week after. I said it can't get any better, because we're going to be putting the same young kids out there who are going to be playing against the Brisbane Broncos or the Melbourne Storm, who have got heaps of test players, and these kids are learning their trade. And I said, the only thing I can promise you is this next year they'll be a lot better for this experience. But in the short term, there was no way around it. And that was some tough times for everyone, you know, fans, players, boards, everyone involved. It can be hard for.
A few years ago, the club was literally had no third-party agreements. We all know the hidden benefits that some clubs experience with third parties. How tough is that for your club, that you are, from where you are, you're trying to compete on a salary cap, and then there's clubs who are probably spending an extra $1 million, probably more than you guys are, on third parties in playing talent. How tough is that to compete with and try and get back to a competitive state?
Yeah, probably the first thing there, Kenny, I reckon, is that, you know, if the cap's going to go to, say it goes to 9.2 or 9.3 million, you've got to get that bit right first. You can have a lot of third parties, but if you spend your first 9 million bad, the third parties are like peeing into the wind. It's not going to have any effect on you. So it certainly has a helps clubs. There's no doubt. You only got to look at some clubs' teams and you think a general person would say, well, why have they got so many test players and why do they not have so many? Obviously, they've got some third-party agreements obviously in place, but rather than sort of really worry about the third parties at the Knights, we've sort of, Darren Mooney's come in who understands the salary cap far better than myself, and he did a great job with Shane Flanagan at Cronulla. It's about getting the first 9 point something right for us moving forward. So that's a big one for us. And obviously our local kids were sort of rich in local talent, and rather than have the local players, which I believe was something that would have definitely happened in the club in the past 8 or 10 years, getting paid overs, you need your local players to actually feel there's something good happening and want to stay for less money, So if you look at Mitch Barnett, for example, Mitch Barnett's a kid he played at the Knights when he was younger. For whatever reason, ended up at Canberra. He brought Mitch back. Now, Mitch Barnett was off contract this year, and he said to his agent, I just want to stay here. Don't worry about going out and seeing everywhere else. Just get a deal sorted. And he tries his heart out every minute of every game for us, and we need those type of players to then help us in the market to attract a Taumoga or a Kalen Ponga and that type of thing. So, but the third parties are definitely, the game's not an even playing field, you could definitely say that.
Now, Andrew Johns has come out and said that he believes Brock Lamb, his future is at halfback for the Newcastle Knights. I mean, he's playing some great football at the moment. Do you see him with a 7 on his back up there?
Yeah, look, it's probably a position that suits him. Probably, Benny, I think Lamb is not... He's not what you'd say he's the quickest. He's quite good between his ears. He's some of his best attributes are he can kick the ball naturally really well, and he can play nice and straight, and he can move the defence around nicely. So he's certainly got some correct attributes. And as he matures, I'm sure he'll get more dominant on the field. He's getting a little better now compared to what he was earlier, and I'd expect him to keep improving. And he's still an under-20s player. As we stand today, he can still play under-20s. So I think if we look at the growth he's had even since the Canterbury game, when he was obviously devastated after that game, his last 3 games, which are 3 games we've won, he's had some big involvements in all those 3 wins in try, assists and tries. So he certainly is growing, and I would have thought number 7 would probably be the position that'll suit him best.
You'd have to have a soft spot too for the players that are quicker between the ears and across the ground, wouldn't you?
I tend to like the ones that are a bit slower there on the feet, a bit like me, Benny.
I asked his daughters to be brought down for the show today who the coach's pet would be, and they both said, didn't they, at the same time? He talks a lot about Brock Lamb. Now, talk us through the Knights of 2018. You've got Kalen Ponga coming, Herman Esiesi, Taumoga, Aidan Guerra.
Yeah.
Connor Watson. So, look, none of them are superstars, but all players either with great potential that have shown enough to think that they're going to realise it, or have found their best form this year.
Yeah, look, they're all players that are playing in top 4 clubs. So when you're rebuilding a club, to bring players from clubs that know how it's done properly is a good starting point for us. If you're starting out rebuilding another club, you wouldn't want to come and raid the Knights at the moment, because a lot of the kids are learning how to do it. So getting them from really, really good clubs, which has been a bit of a key part for us. Aidan Guerra is a winning player. He's grand finals and origins, and he brings a lot of games with him, which was important for us because we have such a limited amount of games. And with Connor Watson, he provides a real running threat, which is important to us. And one of the things we identified really quickly at the Knights was we've got a lot of good outside backs, but a lot of smaller ones, and that's where Shaun, Kenny-Dowall and Taumoga come into play there. Obviously got some nice size about them, So look, we're quite hopeful that with the recruitment decisions we've made, we're really happy with them all. We feel they're going to make our team a lot better. And when you're recruiting and building a club, it's really important that the ones you bring in are going to make your team a lot better. And we feel all those players will help our club get a lot better. And we'd also, we've still got some punches to throw in the market there at the moment. We're still actively out there looking hard to bring some more players in, and hopefully players from good clubs who we know are going to help us a lot.
Yep.
Any tips on who you're looking for? Type of player you're looking for?
We certainly, look, we really would like to have got Matt Scott, for the young Safidi boys, and Barnett and King, and we really do feel that a good experienced front rower who's a great trainer and good with diet and challenges the right things and knows how to do it. That's certainly a player that would be a real priority for us at the moment. Probably more important than anything else. That'd probably be our number one priority at the minute.
Canterbury are shopping around, obviously, quite a few of their squad. And the word is, aside from a couple of players there, it's will accept any offer. Would you have a look at some of their players?
Oh, look, we looked at James Graham well earlier in the year. And, James Graham, he's not really that interested in leaving Canterbury when we spoke to... And Des is not keen on James Graham leaving if truth be told either. They might be in a situation where they have to, but look, he's certainly a player that offers some of the things we just spoke about, but we've sort of moved in another direction now. But I'm sure there's some players there at Canterbury that I suppose, depending on which ones come up, and the ones you got to try and get the ones that you need, not the ones that they may want to get rid of, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you what, the green shoots are definitely starting to show. Nathan Brown, thanks for travelling down the freeway and joining us on NRL 360, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thanks, guys.
All right, it's time for a break. We're going to play Trading Places next, and our players are back tomorrow night. Aaron Woods and James Graham.
Fletch.
Boys, remember Simon Woolford? Played for one of Canberra Greys, as a hooker, played for St George Illawarra. Well, his nickname is Germ, and I think it's unwarranted because I've known him for a long time, but now I know why his nickname is Germ. Have a look at this. Watch out! Poor guy. Germ's obviously up there helping Brownie up there, but terrific bloke, Germ. But,
he is a good fella.
Disgusting habit.
Wow.
Disgusting habit.
Oh, that's a good one.
Thank you, Ben. On the couch tonight, so many issues to get into. We'll obviously be looking at the situation at the Gold Coast Titans. We'll then go south of the border to catch up with Melbourne Storm coach Craig Bellamy, his team hot favourites to take out this year's premiership title. And I'll be sitting down one-on-one with the real character of the game, who's making a great success of life after football, Adam McDougall. We're up. But after the break, we'll look at some of the best brain snaps we've seen in the game. That's a little bit later. But before that, I'll be sitting down one-on-one with one of Newcastle's favourite and successful sons. That's Adam McDougall.
Listen to this when they make their way onto the football stadium. The 1997 Grand Final. Andrew fires the pass out to McDougall. Strong player Adam. It's gone astray. And McDougall comes off the wing to be tackled by Tuvey.
Jeff Tuvey has taken the boot of Adam McDougall. I'm giving McDougall the benefit of the doubt. And I can't give him too much benefit of the doubt after watching the replay.
Fifth tackle. Down the blind, Andrew John. Inside for Elba. Elba will score. Elba will score. Newcastle have won.
He comes from a footballing family, and over 16 seasons in the top grade, he carried on that tradition. After kicking off with the Roosters, Adam McDougall also played with the Knights and the Rabbitohs, becoming a dual premiership winner in Newcastle. On the representative front, he played 11 matches for both New South Wales and Australia. After successfully stepping into the health industry upon retirement, he this season became the first former player to become the major sponsor of his ex-club. Tonight, Adam McDougall joins me one-on-one. Dukes, good to see you. I know how busy you are, so I really appreciate your time. Now, I mentioned the family tradition. Your father, Gil, was an outstanding player, played first grade at Balmain, Western Suburbs, played in consecutive grand finals against the mighty St George, played for New South Wales as well. Did he talk to you much about his career?
Yeah, look, no, not really. It was strange. Growing up, I grew up around some of the greatest names in rugby league, and at the time I didn't really appreciate, Johnny Raper or who, a lot of these people were at the time, Tommy Raudonikis. There's so many great people I got, afforded to spend time with and rub shoulders with, kicking the football around while my dad sunk schooners, and I had a fire engine and a packet of Sandboy chips, and take me to the SCG, and I remember running out after the 1986 grand final trying to touch your magnificent hair. Look, I was just blessed to grow up around football, around so many great footballers, and all I wanted to do was kick a football around and then to go on and have a career where, for the better part of my life, that's what I got paid to do. It was a dream come true.
All right, well, you were raised around footballers, especially within the family.
Yeah.
Because your brothers Luke, Ben and Scott all played at high levels. Were you tight? Did you keep an eye out for each other and on each other during those playing days?
Yeah, look, the one thing that my dad ever taught me was the fact that he didn't really push me to play football. It was strange. He just said that if you're going to do anything in life, you've got to give it 100%. If you're not going to do it with 100% gusto, don't do it. So he encouraged us, if we were going to play rugby league, to make sure that we, made sure we didn't, I suppose, waste the career. And, one big thing he said to me he regretted was the fact he probably liked a beer too much. So, when you're playing, you've got to make sacrifices. So try not to drink and have too good a time. That was one of his regrets. He was Joey's best drinking partner, my old man. So Joey used to say, I wish you were more like your dad, a bit more fun. So, but he certainly taught us to give 100%.
Well, you get your first crack at the Roosters in '95. You play 6 first-grade games there over 2 seasons. You could go back to Newcastle, and it's under Malcolm really up there. Why do you think Andrew Johns at that time described you as a strange kettle of fish?
Because I didn't gamble, I didn't drink alcohol, and I didn't have strange conversations to myself.
Well, we've heard of the legend of you talking to your legs, and apparently that was supposed to be before a big Origin match. But is it true the catalyst for that story actually came from a trial in Tamworth?
Yeah, Tamworth, yeah. So I got a bad cramp and I walked off and I made the quota, so I can't believe my legs let me down. And Joey took it and ran with it. And, that was a great thing about the culture we had in Newcastle was we're there to have fun and we never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Winning the premiership in 1997, first time for the Newcastle Knights, what did that mean to you?
It was strange because you're so young, 19, 20 years of age, you just sort of expect it to happen every year after you walk into a grand final. You're playing with such great players. You probably don't appreciate it at the time, playing with guys like Andrew Johnson until you finish your career and Paul Harrigans and Matty Johns and all these great players we had. It was funny, inside our group, we really believed we could win that game. Not many people gave us much hope. And even though we were down for most of the game on the scoreboard, we were confident we were going to win that game, and we did. But to go home and see scenes like we had in Newcastle, like this town hall, tens of thousands of people lining the street. Even after the game, I remember driving back in the bus, it was surreal. There was people lined up all the way up the M1 motorway, all the way.
Celebrations were momentous, and we've seen those images. But the postscript for you was a little bit different because you were cited and suspended for the entanglement with Jeff Tuvey. Did you think that was a touch harsh?
Look, grand finals, rugby league, when you're on the field, there's so much adrenaline going and stuff like that. And when I looked back at it, after I got charged, I was like, wow, that just doesn't look good. I'll be the first to admit that. But, as you know, when things are slowed down and whatnot, in the heat of battle, there was no intent there. And Manson, the referee, even said as much in the tribunal, who he testified for me. But at the end of the day, I kicked the player in the face and it didn't look good. But one of them moments that you look back and wish didn't happen.
All right, well, your career takes a bigger hit the following season, midway through 1998. Why are you suspended for taking a banned substance? Yeah, look, it was shattering at the time, and it still hurts to this day. I suppose. I was prescribed a medication that I used, for a medical condition throughout my whole career. I'm not going to sit here and point the finger at certain people at the club or certain doctors and whatnot, but it was just simply a matter of a stroke of a pen, really letting me down, not following the right procedure by getting a form signed. So Lawrence Street at the time goes, the use of the substance wasn't performance enhancing, it was an honest mistake, it was inadvertent use. However, the club and yourself didn't follow protocol, so we have no other choice but to hand a retrospective ban. It certainly hurts, but I think in retrospect as well, I'm glad it happened to a point because it made me realise who was important in my life. My real friends, my family, people around you are the ones that really you have to look at every day in the eye and look at yourself in the mirror, more importantly, Sterlo. I think don't worry too much about what other people think. Just worry about your intimate fans. All right, well, you go on to success and you win your second title in 2001 against the highly fancy Parramatta side that year. Did that feel different to the initial victory? It was a bit of a letdown, I hate to sort of say it. Yeah, it was a letdown in the sense that, going into that grand final, I knew Parramatta were favourites, but when I looked around the dressing room, we had, I think, 11 representative players, and they were a young side who were a very good side. They didn't have that experience and they didn't have the superstars. It's pretty calming and confidence boosting when you sit down and you've got an immortal like Andrew Johns sitting next to you, and then you've got, Denny Badiris, you've got Tamana Tahu, Matt Gidley, Robbie O'Davis, just goes on and on, Darren Albert, every single player in that team had played rep football basically. But,
a great feeling to win, but, it's certainly weird, isn't it? You always remember your first kiss or, your first game of first grade, but, your second grand final, whilst it's a great experience, nothing will beat 97.
When you mentioned first kiss, you didn't need to look at me that way. Now, you'd started playing Origin football back in 98, but it wasn't serious success until we come through to 2000. Not a lot of wingers have won Man of the Match awards.
Yeah.
You do so in game one. Is that your standout Origin?
Yeah, I think in 2000 I won the Players Player Award and
clean sweep as well.
Yeah, clean sweep. 56-6. I remember writing on my wrist before that game, Man of the Match, 3 tries, and I went out and did it. Everyone thought I was a bit of a, I don't know what
oracle.
An oracle. But it was once again that mental training stuff that Wayne Pearce brought in about setting goals and writing the goals down and trying to visualise and whatnot. And it just so happened. But great side. To think that Andrew Johns was on the bench. He was kept out of the starting side is just amazing. That just shows the depth of quality of that football side. You're
playing against Wendell Sailor up until that stage. Each of the Origins he'd been opposite you, and you appeared to have built up a great rivalry on all levels. How keen was the rivalry between you two?
Yeah, it was really keen. It was funny actually because it was when the codes had split in 97 and 96. Brisbane had won the competition, the Super League, we'd won the competition, the NRL, and I remember playing against Wendell in that supposed the Super Bowl of the two competitions coming back together in 98. And I remember my first run of the game, and Wendell Sailor's over the top of me, rubbed my head in the ground, and he goes, "Mate, you'll always be the second best winger in the game." And I stood up and played the ball, and what's this idiot on about? And the whole game he just kept hammering me, and I thought, bugger this bloke. How am I going to shut him up? So I quickly realised the only way I could shut him up was obviously trying to get over the top of it. Yeah. And, I took the analogy a bit like a heavyweight boxer, The only way you can judge yourself is when you come up against the best. And, that's how you judge yourself. And to me, Wendell Sailor was the best winger. So it was pretty easy to get myself motivated. I had a guy that had a big mouth and I had a guy that a lot of people regarded as the best winger in the game. And I wanted to be regarded as that. So didn't have to motivate myself too much to get up for them games. And, I don't like giving myself a rap. But one thing I will say is every time I played Wendell, I got over him, and he'll tell you as much.
Well, 2000, it's a great year, obviously, with Origin. You make your test debut. You're a part of the successful Australian campaign in the World Cup. And you spent a bit of time in San Diego. What was that about?
There was a huge interest, I suppose, from the NFL teams about what was happening in rugby league in Australia. And they watched a couple of games, and they actually watched an Origin. And because I'd gone all right, I got approached to go and trial in the NFL, long before Jarrod had. But there was a player over there called Colin Scott. Yeah. And I got offered a training contract to go over there. It was a 30-day contract. I went over there. I just signed a pretty good contract with the Knights. I knocked back a big deal with rugby union. Enough to set my family up. That was always my goal in rugby league, was buy my mum and dad a house, and I got to do that. And here I am sitting in front of a contract, worth $1 million+. And I went to training for the first time, and I met a bloke whose arm was bigger than me, with a helmet, and he wanted to kill me.
Wasn't your game?
So I basically put the white flag up and said, I've got no insurance. I've never played this game before. And it was funny, because when I did the testing, the running, the jumping, they were pretty excited, the fact that we could run, catch and tackle. We were multi-dimensional as skills. Yeah. But the one thing that, I hadn't really taken into account was the gear. As soon as I put that training equipment on, we even had a groin protector. It was weird, and shoulder pads, a helmet. I remember the first training session, before the contact had even entered my mind, getting thrown balls, and they were bouncing off my head. I was tripping over. I think I ran without the equipment on just under 11 seconds, and then with the equipment on, it was about 22 seconds. So I was just a target for these big guys.
You came home.
Come home, and that's why I respect Jarrod Hayne. To do what he did. A lot of people can say, he didn't make it at the top. If you play one NFL game, that's a huge achievement.
Why did you go to South in 2004?
Well, I'd done my knee and the season before, and there was a little bit of unhappiness amongst some of the management at the club that I was on this huge money. A lot of people, when I did my knee, it was pretty bad at the time, said I wouldn't play again, a couple of doctors and specialists. So the club got nervous. They wanted to renegotiate my contract. And given the fact that I'd knocked back probably 3 times the money to go to rugby union, I was a bit cranky and disappointed that I'd made that sacrifice to stay with the team. And here they were trying to penny pinch. I was pretty disappointed. So I got a phone call from Andrew Denton at the time saying to me that Russell Crowe was really keen on bringing South back to the glory days. He wanted to sign me as their first player, and he'd ring me. So I went home, didn't tell my wife that Russell Crowe was going to ring. That night the phone rang. I'd never answered the phone because you never knew who it was. Anyway, my wife answered it, and the person on the other end said, "Oh, is Adam there?" And she said, "Who is it?" And the voice said, "Russell Crowe." And my wife said, "Piss off, Clint Newton," and hung up. And my wife came back and said, "Can you tell your stupid mates to stop ringing up and doing bad impersonations of Hollywood actors?" And I said, "Who was it?" And she said, "Russell Crowe." I said, "No, it's actually him ringing me." She went, "Oh my God, what's he ringing you for?" And I told her, and the phone rang a few minutes later, spoke to him, and his passion then and there stuck out to me, that he was really on the trail to turn him into a superpower. It was honestly probably the 2 to 3 years of the most fun, exciting, most abnormal stuff that you ever see in a football club ever.
But does Russell, when you asked for a release and you chance of going to Melbourne, but you're going back to Newcastle, did he stop talking to you?
Yeah, look, it got ugly. I won't lie, but most breakups do. I don't, know any really good breakups, do you? So, I was going to go to Melbourne, and I really wanted to play under Craig Bellamy. I just played rep football that year with him again. He was such a smart coach and such an innovative guy. And, I remember going to sign with Melbourne, and my brother was at Melbourne at the time, and he was going to play rugby union, and rang me and said, "Mate, you're kidding yourself. Your last one day under Bellamy, you'll have to train." So he said, "Do not come to Melbourne." So I'd all but agreed and shook on it. And then Andrew Johns, ironically, rang me that night and asked me to come back to the Knights. And I went back. Russell was hoping I was going to re-sign. When I told him I wasn't going to re-sign, they weren't particularly happy. And
it was also jeopardised, the release, until you gave something back.
Yeah.
What was that?
We had this thing, it was like a silver bunny. And Russell came up with this great idea that, he'd give every single player that played first grade a silver bunny. It was like a memento. And, essentially it was about a brotherhood. You'd be able to, see someone in public that had this memento, and you'd know that they were your brother. Which, when you're playing with a bloke, I think you already know who he is. Yeah. So I don't know why you need a bunny. But anyway, I, at the end of my career at Souths, had forgotten to give back the bunny. And at the same time, I'd actually been fined $10,000 for some comments I made after a bad loss.
Yeah, about if you'd have known it was going to be like that, you'd have stayed at home, turned the oven on to 500 degrees and jumped in.
Or I would have got my mum and dad tickets behind the goalpost because that's where I stood all day. So, you had to make light of it. And I was pretty disappointed them comments got leaked to the media, because the only person at the time that was within earshot of that was Shane Richardson, the CEO. Yeah. And, I'm not into lying and, being false. Me and Shane didn't get along. So they sent me a text message in the off-season asking back for Russell's rabbit. I said to him, "Yep, you'll get back the rabbit when I get back my 10 grand. So there was a hold-off in the whole pre-season, a number of text messages from Russell to the football manager to me. I held it to ransom. We were actually playing our first game of the year in 2007. Our football manager rang me up, sweating, going, "Come on, Adam, you've got to get back the bunny." He goes, "I'm meeting the football manager on the Central Coast. We're going to do an exchange. They're going to give you back 10 grand for the silver bunny." That morning of the game, the football managers drove to the Central Coast, handed over the bunny. I got me 10 grand back. All good.
You play South that following season, and there's a post-try celebration.
Yeah.
Can you just take us through this one?
Yeah.
Against the Rabbits.
It was against the Rabbits, and Matty Johns was doing the commentary at the time, and he G'd me up and he said, "Mate, you've got to do a post-try celebration." Unfortunately, Russell had just got charged in America for throwing a phone at someone at a hotel, so I thought, there you go. So, look, I'm a big believer in making light of situations. In all fairness and seriousness, I've got the utmost respect for Russell and what he did for me and what he did for South. It was amazing. Great bunch of people at South Sydney, the best fans in the NRL, as far as I'm concerned, just diehards. They stuck by him through thick and thin. To see them win a premiership, how could you not be excited for their fans?
All right, you go back, you have 5 seasons with the Knights, and 2011 is your final year. Is it true that you nearly pulled up stakes early in the season because of grief?
Yeah, look, I had a goal I didn't tell too many people about. I wanted to be the first player to play to 40. I always love doing what people say you can't do. So I was nearly 37 that year. The oldest player to play in the finals, but unfortunately my dad passed away. And, that's something that, it haunted me a lot. My dad was a big motivation for playing. You want to be like your dad. You grow up wanting to sort of make your parents proud. I'd have a weird thing when I run out into the field. First people I'd look for in the stand was always my mum and dad. And so, not seeing him there was hard.
And still is, and rightly so. It's going into those last couple of games now, you'd been concentrating fairly strongly on life after football, didn't you? All right. Well, you set up Cranky Health, the organisation. We all know the Manshake and how well it's doing. Just finally, Dukes, what was the motivation for the sponsorship with the Newcastle Knights?
Look, I wouldn't have the business, I wouldn't have the success I've had today without the club and the game of rugby league. Rugby league has given me everything, allowed me to go to university, allowed me to have the money to start my business. You know, it allowed me to make a connection with the football fans who today buy my product, support my business. And I made a statement that day that, you know, I was going to donate a percentage of our revenue every year to charities. And now to be able to give back to, you know, my good mate Mark Hughes, to be able to sponsor Pt2 and deck out the kids in Fiji. I just come back from there with their football boots and jerseys. To be able to give back to so many charities now and give back to the game and hopefully inspire current players to realise that we're not dumb footballers. And, you know, it is the greatest game on earth, and rugby league gives you so many tools to go on after football and be a great person and to be successful. You know, we seem to be labelled a lot rugby league players, but people don't see the great things that rugby league players do. The amount of smiles they put on kids' faces, the amount of stuff they do when the cameras aren't there. You know, being a rugby league player is a huge honour, and I just applaud any current player to realise that it's a gift. Don't take it for granted. And when you're finished, you can go on to great things as well.
That's great stuff. Well, you've got your priorities right and you've got things in perspective, and continue the great work, continue all that success, and congratulations on a wonderful career.
Yeah, thank you.
Like looking into the mirror.
It is. It is. I can see myself in 20 years.
Only 20.
Run away. Well, we are 20 years on from one of sport's most thrilling grand finals, and the 1997 Newcastle Knights are on a reunion like no other. They gathered again today on a journey to conquer Mount Everest, a mission for their mate Mark Hughes and his fight against brain cancer.
It's a routine they've all been through hundreds of times. The farewell to loved ones and onto the team bus. But this time the destination's a 5,364 metre climb to Mount Everest Base Camp.
We'll have each other around us. I'm sure we'll push each other and help each other, and there'll be a few laughs along the way. So it's just going to be a really great experience.
They thought they'd been on top of the world before.
Newcastle have won the grand final!
But conquering the real thing's a whole different story to the 97 grand final.
Why Everest, mate?
Because it's hard. I think, you know, if you're going to ask people to sponsor you to do something, it has to be hard.
Mark Hughes is the driving force, relentless in his 4-year fight with brain cancer.
It's a terrible disease, kills more people than any other cancer for 40 years and under. It's really tough, so it's something that needs help.
He hasn't just taken it laying down. He gets his treatment, he gets tricked every 3 months. But he's been trekking around the world, he's been doing great things, and it just goes to show if you're in that same situation, you know, follow his role. You know, that's the way to go.
That glorious day here 20 years ago created footy legend, but these Knights know what they're doing now could be their greatest achievement of all.
It's a bond that we've forged over a lifetime.
The aim is raising $500,000 for the Mark Hughes Foundation. Adam McDougall's tipped in $100,000. Brave Smash's third place in the Everest today was worth a $40,000 donation.
Really appreciate everyone getting behind it. We kind of feel pretty special leaving at the moment.
To support the Chief and his men with the donation, there's a link on our website. Matt Carmichael, 7 News.
Happy trekking to them. Good cause.
Newcastle coach Nathan Brown has taken aim at Paul Gallen after the Sharks captain said Mitchell Pearce has taken a huge risk joining the Knights. Brown believes Gallen is just angry because Cronulla missed out on signing the halfback.
As the players put in the hard yards on the field, coach Nathan Brown did his pre-season work, fighting off rival clubs to sign Mitchell Pearce.
Most people in rugby league, everyone would have assumed he was going to go to Cronulla or Manly, and you know they both tabled very, very strong offers for him, and you know, fortunately he picked us.
Brown says it was the influence of former club greats which helped get Pearce over the line.
The Johns boys, Danny Badiris, there was plenty of people that did a lot of work.
Pearce turned his back on Manly and Cronulla. Sharks captain Paul Gallen fears the former Rooster has made a big mistake. He says Pearce may have killed off his chances of winning a premiership and playing rep football by signing with the Wooden Spooners. Those comments triggered this cutting response from Brown.
Gal's, you know, he's not long off pulling the pin. He'll play for another year or two and he's going to get in the media and he's got to make big calls, doesn't he? But he's probably forgot that it was 5 years ago that Cronulla were last and had all drugs charges against them and were going nowhere. But you know, through Paul Gallen helping Moons and Shane Flanagan recruit, they signed Luke Lewis, they signed McInnes and they won a comp. You know, I think if Gal looks back at that and sees the players we've signed, you know, he's probably a little disappointed because his window of winning another comp's closing, isn't it? And Mitchell Pearce helps him win another one quicker than what anyone else does.
Danica Mason, 9 News.
Mitchell Pearce has attracted the biggest media scrum in Newcastle since Supercoach Wayne Bennett was at the club. Jim Wilson is here, and Jim, on his first day with Newcastle, Pearce says the sky's the limit for the Knights.
Fergo, he's talking up his new club. Good evening to you, good evening everyone. Mitchell Pearce revealed the challenge of rebuilding the Wooden Spooners held greater appeal than joining Cronulla or Manly. The halfback also scoffed at Paul Gallen's claim he could lose his Blues jersey and insists there's no bad blood with Cooper Cronk after he took his place at the Roosters.
He's the best Knights halfback since Andrew Johns.
It all feels a bit surreal at the moment.
And Mitchell Pearce instantly fell in love with Newcastle.
As soon as I came to Newcastle, I drove home. I actually called Dad on the way home and said there's something special. The club's building a really good place.
Pearce laughed at Paul Gallen's claim he'll lose his Origin jersey by signing with the Wooden Spooners.
Is Paul Gallen just filthy? He didn't go to Cronulla? Maybe a little bit.
And there's no dramas with Cooper Cronk.
My decision was nothing to do with me and Cooper. There's no doubt I could have learnt and picked up a few things off Cooper. There's also a lot of things I can pick up with this group.
Now Pearce is pleading with Brock Lamb to stay with Newcastle. The young halfback's pondering a move to Manly after Pearce took his position.
He's got a massive future and he's a local junior, and I'd love to form some sort of combination there.
Brock will certainly be playing with the Knights this year, that's 100% guaranteed.
The Knights have come last the past 3 years. It's been tough to cop for a town that's fanatical about rugby league. But there's a feeling with Mitchell Pearce's signature, the Knights are about to play finals football once again.
It's a mad footy town, and that's one of the big reasons I wanted to be here. I wanted to come here and hopefully bring success to the town.
Liam Cox, 7 News.
Plus, Mitchell Pearce has his first training season as a Knight and why he chose Newcastle over staying in Sydney.
Sharks premiership winner James Maloney has a new home, officially joining the Panthers for the next 3 years. His Blues halves partner Mitchell Pearce is also settling into his new digs. Newcastle's marquee signing saying it was time for him to get out of the Sydney spotlight. Adam Hawes reports.
From ruffled rooster to Knights saviour, today the beginning of a new chapter for Mitchell Pearce.
It's a really proud day for me. It's obviously been in one club my whole career. Obviously at the Roosters for a long time. It's a big challenge, but something that I'm prepared for, and that's what I want at this point in my career.
Despite Newcastle claiming the past 3 wooden spoons and fears he could jeopardise his Origin position, Pearce couldn't wait to sign, snubbing the Sharks and Seagulls.
So I drove home, I actually called Dad on the way home and said there's something special. The club's building a really good place.
$4 million over 4 years helped seal the deal. So did removing Pearce from big city scrutiny.
That was one of the big things for me, is getting out of Sydney and coming up and being part of this town. It's a different culture to what I'm used to in Sydney. It's a mad footy town, and that's one of the big reasons I wanted to be here. I wanted to come here and hopefully bring success to the town.
There were plenty of familiar faces to help Pearce settle in on his first day. In fact, it looked a bit like the Newcastle Roosters out there, with Pearce joined by his old mates Aidan, Guerra, Connor Watson and Shaun Kenny-Dowall.
I feel like he's going to thrive here, and it's only early days, but I'm hoping that his best footy's ahead of him.
In round 3, he'll face the new Roosters number 7, Cooper Cronk, the man Jonathan Thurston said Pearce could have learned from.
There's no doubt I could have learned and picked up a few things off Cooper. There's also a lot of things I can pick up with this group and this club. So I had to make a decision that was best for me and my family.
The 28-year-old is a contender for the Knights' captaincy. Adam Hawes, 10 Eyewitness News.
Mitchell Pearce explains why he chose the Knights over Cronulla and Manly. Mitchell Pearce says the chance to become a leader at an emerging club is the real reason he chose to sign with Newcastle. Pearce has no doubt he can handle the pressure of being the main man in a one-team town.
No shining armour, but Newcastle's newest Knight today reported for duty.
Special feeling, bit of a hard session to start up with, but yeah, it all feels a bit surreal at the moment.
In his first day in unfamiliar colours, Pearce explained the reason he knocked back offers from Cronulla and Manly to move up the M1.
As soon as I came to Newcastle, I drove home. I actually called Dad on the way home and said there's something special. The club's building a really good place, and I see myself at a point in my career where I'm excited to take that leadership role, and I'm excited to hopefully bring a bit of experience and be a part of the rebuild.
Pearce insists he has no hard feelings towards Cooper Cronk, but at 28, he wasn't prepared to become a student again.
There's no doubt I could have learned something from Cooper Cronk. Cooper Cronk's one of the greatest halfbacks we've seen. It was nothing personal against Cooper. I spoke to Cooper a couple of times on the phone. Got the utmost respect for Cooper. I've said it publicly and to all the Roosters boys, he's going to be great for the club. So my decision was nothing to do with me and Cooper.
Newcastle is a one-team rugby league mad town, so there will be a fair bit of pressure on Pearce, but he says it's nothing compared to what he's experienced throughout his career.
It's all I've known, so you know I've been blessed and loved every minute of playing first grade at the Roosters and been a part of that Sydney footy culture. But yeah, it's a fresh change and it's something new and it's something I'm excited for.
The Knights meet the Roosters in round 3 at Allianz Stadium next season. Danica Mason, 9 News.
How Mitchell Pearce is making noise on and off the field in Newcastle. The Knights believe the signing of Mitchell Pearce will have a positive effect on the club well into the future. Newcastle are confident with Pearce on the books, they'll now be able to lure even more big-name players.
They've got their $1 million man, but according to the Knights, Mitchell Pearce's signing is just the beginning.
It might have a little bit of a flow-on effect like that, Danica. It's one of those things where players want to play around, you know, a successful team and things like that. You know, I came here because I felt that the club was going in the right direction, and you know, hopefully we got a big name now like Mitchell Pearce, and everyone knows what he brings on the field. So, you know, it might lure other players.
Guerra says patience will be key, as this year's Wooden Spooners are still in a rebuilding phase.
It may not happen straight away, but you know, we feel like as a club we're in a good position to move forward and take some positive steps.
But after only a couple of weeks of pre-season training, the players say they can feel something special is developing.
You're coming in on the first day, it was, personally for me, it was like, you know, there were a lot of young faces and people that I didn't know, and you get to know them as people, and then you also get to see what they can do on the field. It is promising. It's an exciting time for the club and the town, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Danica Mason, 9 News.